Fire and Earth podcast with your hosts, Jason Mefford and Kathy Gruver. Fire and Earth, giving you the keys to unlock your limitless potential.
Welcome to another episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. I'm your co-host, Jason Mefford.
And I am Kathy Gruver, and we are thrilled to have another amazing guest. I have known Eric, Jason just did the math, which is just horribly cruel.
We're not that old. Don't even tell him, right?
26 years? Is that what you said, Jason?
26 years.
Oh my God. So I have known Eric Sharpo for 26 years. We did murder mystery together. We did plays together. Can I say I performed your first wedding? I performed your first wedding.
No, you performed at my second wedding. Nora's my third wife.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, okay. Oh, yeah. Maybe it was my first wedding. I don't know. We all have that. And that's actually kind of what we're going to talk about. And now you're a magician, you're a Freemason, I have watched you grow into such a unique and phenomenal individual, just a better version of who you were then. So it's like, that's kind of what we're going to talk about, is self-actualization and evolution and all those things. And so thanks for being here. So good to have you.
Thank you both for having me on your podcast. It's exciting. I don't have a clean space like you both have to work in. I'm a clutter mess. So I just put this is actually my wallpaper behind me in my actual home now, because it represents the fire, water, earth, and the other thing, air. Yes, there it is. Yes, I'm breathing it in. So, yeah. So before we started rolling, and I thought we were rolling with this thing, I started talking about how, for me, for you, growth was different, Kathy, because you were already a very actualized person when I met you. Before you became a PhD, Elemento P, whatever the doctor thing was, you were already there. You just you had not written your books yet, but it was all in your head. Yeah. In here, in my head, was a jarbled mess. And so for me, it started with a place of knowing that I'm a little crazy and a bit of an artist, and that's okay, and to get into that place of self-acceptance. And when I got to that point, surrendered to being me, then I could grow. But the first half of the life was we got to start over at Act 2 for me.
Yeah. Well, and that's okay, because then we have an intermission, we kind of regroup, we reset the stage, and then we come out and we do a whole different part of the show. So that's okay.
Well, the nice thing is our life doesn't necessarily fit into 2 or 3 acts either, right? I mean, we can have as many as we want to. We've talked about stories on here before, right? Mm-hmm. Is we can create the stories that we want. But I love what you said, that surrendering to being me is, I think, really one of the first steps. And it's probably one of the hardest steps. I mean, you use the word crazy. I tell people that I'm crazy too, because we're all a little bit crazy.
I'm glad you said it, because anyone who thinks they're not crazy is a lunatic.
Well, and that ties together one of my favorite philosophers, right? Billy Joel said it great, right? You've heard of him, because in the one song that he has, it's you may be right, I may be crazy, but here comes. But it just may be a lunatic you're looking for,
right?
Right? That we're all a little crazy, we're all a little different. Yeah. And probably one of the hardest things is for us to accept that and to realize that people love us for our freakiness and how crazy we are and everything else, and it's okay.
Well, and that's awesome. And for me, during this pandemic thing where people are being categorized into essential and non-essential, right. Well, my wife's a hero nurse. She's out there in the ICU. She's the charge nurse. She is heroic. She is battling the world here. It's all on her shoulders. And she's super essential. She's the next level essential. Mm-hmm. And suddenly I'm in a place where my business has come to a dead halt. And I'm going, well, how do I be essential? And I was making some videos and some art for myself, trying to share it. And I wasn't getting a lot of views for one of them. And I realized something really important, that even if sometimes the work seems insignificant to other people, it's significant to me. It matters to me. This is my journey. This is my life. And the more I surrender to it and give into it, actually that's where, that's when you make good art. or better art, or it didn't matter if it's good or bad. Who am I to judge my own stuff? If I keep judging me, then I'll never put anything out there. So
Yeah.
the job of the artist is never to judge his own stuff, but just to do it, let other people be the judge. But I guess the point was it mattered to me, and I never allowed it to matter to me before. I always felt like, oh, well, if I'm not earning, well, you know, and so it's very liberating that there's no choice to be earning right now because I can't. So now I can just make my art. Nora loves that, by the way.
Yeah. We'll have her on next week and we'll discuss how she feels about that. But no, I mean, it's great because you're talking about this self-acceptance and this evolution, and how do we, you know, because we've all had a checkered past. Jason didn't. He was a perfect double.
Yeah,
I
I've always
the
been a
entire
perfect
time.
child.
You can see that. Just a,
Yes, but it's that little cherub face and yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I think it's in the painting behind you with the sailboat and the
Oh, you like that? Well,
comments. I do like it very much.
yeah, it's actually one that I painted. So there's a little bit of artist in me as well. There's symbolic
Very nice.
stuff to it. But yeah, so it's
Very
yeah.
nice. Yeah. But it's like, how do we, and we talked before we got on the air about accepting that past and, you know, looking back and not being embarrassed by it. And how do you make that leap? How do we learn from everything we did rather than making it a burden?
Well, for me, I had to stop taking drugs and drinking alcohol. That was the first thing, was to stop distancing myself from this place, this reality, so that I could experience it. I was just cutting myself off from that because the pain of being here, you know, the pain of being a person can sometimes be overwhelming. So I was stepping back from that, and I was postponing life instead of going through it. And the only way out is through. And you can only go halfway into the woods. I get a lot of these, by the way, just to hit me up. And
I got to write all these down.
Number
These are great
47.
quotes.
Number 47, beef and broccoli. Fortune cookies say.
Yeah, you have to go through. Yeah, that's, and you're right. Being a human, especially right now, there's so much fear with the pandemic, and there's so much hesitancy and so much, you know, I mean, I'm probably one of the strongest people I know. And there's been days that I've been terrified and had the shit scared out of me and laid in my boyfriend's arms crying about the fear of my business and what's happening with my clients. And, you know, I'm unemployed. I'm not sure how. I'm not essential, being that I'm helping people with their pain, but I'm also deemed non-essential. So I'm not allowed to be working right now, to the tune of maybe losing my license if I would get caught working, which is like scary. It's terrifying. You know, it's like, I don't want to be this underground thing, but it's like, I also have clients in pain.
You know what? Can I say something?
Yeah.
When I see people like you who are brave enough to share your fear and your discomfort and just be, that to me is so inspiring, because I have a problem with that. I have a problem with not just putting on the Sharpo happy face and being the clown, you know, but when I see people who are strong enough to be vulnerable, there's the irony, right? You're strong enough to stand vulnerable and naked for the world and say, this is who I am. You know, I said this to Hannibal the other day, our mutual friend, magician. He's an artist who lays it all out there. He's always himself, always free to be that, no matter what. To me, that is the essence of getting through scary moments.
Yeah. Yeah. And as a performer, and, you know, to a certain extent, all three of us are performers. You know, Jason is also a motivational speaker. He runs courses. You know, it's sometimes hard to forget that we can let that mask down. And we've done shows about masks and covering up emotions and vulnerabilities. It's sometimes so hard to let that mask down. And the times that I have been very vulnerable on Facebook, where my daily pause has been me in tears talking about something that scares me, that's when I get the most input of thank you, because I feel that same thing. And it's nice to know I'm not alone. And, you know, I mean, we can certainly go to the opposite end of that, which is the constant. So it's about finding that balance of being vulnerable and not being a needy, you know, insane person.
No pity party.
Yeah, but it is about being vulnerable, because we all have moments of sadness and depression and fear, and it's about finding that balance in that.
Well, and it's interesting too, because both of you are actors, you know, as well. I mean, yeah, we're all kind of performers, but especially, you know, as you're acting out a role, and you can see this. I mean, Eric, again, you were vulnerable on here talking about, having to get past the drugs and alcohol. And you can see, I mean, especially in that profession where you're always kind of playing somebody else. And you guys, I'm sure, know people in the industry, right? I mean, some of the people, again, you show up, you get into that role, you are that role. And sometimes it's easy for people to forget who the real Jason is.
That's it. Yeah.
Because you are that role that you're playing. I mean, some of the best actors, that we've talked about, they like consume themselves with being that person. They actually stay in character even when they're not on set,
Right.
and do things like that. And it's sometimes, a lot of times people turn to, drugs, alcohol, gambling, whatever the addictive behavior may happen to be, to try to escape remembering or being us. But like you said, until we surrender and let our freakiness out and be okay with and accept it, we're never really living life as us.
I would like to say it has been 16 plus years clean and sober for me. So it's a journey, it's a process, but it is 5,919 days today. So,
wow, that's awesome.
Well, it's important for me because I don't want to miss watching my children grow up, and I think that's the number one motivator for me is I like who I am. Values. I think what happens is when you are able to define your values, what you value in this world. Once you really understand your values, there's no choices. The choices become very easy. Do I want this or do I want this? And when you realize one is in accordance with your values, that's the one you choose. When behaviors and activities go against what you really, really have defined as things you value in this life, that's when you make the bad decisions and or whatever. I forget. I'm old and Alzheimer's. So yeah. Anyway, point is, once you define the values, like it becomes very easy.
Yeah. And we actually did an entire episode on values where we actually went through the value cards. I'm about to do a coaching session where I'm specifically dealing with this gentleman today with values. I completely agree with you. If you don't know what you want, then you can't know who you are to get that thing. And, we talk about this all the time. And this is why I love talking to different guests, because we so often cycle back to things that we've already talked about, Jason. And it's just, it's looked at from a different perspective. It's looked at from a different way. Do you feel like, Eric, that your progression to who you are now was a conglomeration of things, or was there one moment where you went, oh, fuck, I need to make some changes?
Well, I think they call that hitting bottom. Yeah. I think that you get to a point where the pain of not changing is bigger than the fear of changing. And that's this crossroads. You hit the crux of the problem is when the pain is too big and you have to change. And then for me, I really was just, I'm so lucky. I've been given a whole new life. I still have my health. Don't want to tempt fate, but today I'm healthy and I have a beautiful family, a wife and children that are growing up healthy and happy. And I have a house. All the things. When I hit bottom, I had nothing. I was this close to living in my car. And some people, their bottom is lower than that and they live in the car. And then they live without a car. They live in a cardboard box under a bridge, or they don't live at all.
Yeah.
And for me, I was so lucky. And then I grew and cleaned up my act, and I got into running my own business. And then I made sure I cleaned up any wreckage I left in my past. And, I was very lucky. I was never arrested or never got in trouble with the law. So, and nothing that I had done in my past had precluded me from joining my fraternity, because there's very strict rules in the Masonic family, which I'm part of, that do not allow, convicted felons or people who've committed crimes, to join. They want to make sure that they have a good caliber of person. So I was very fortunate to be able to have not made such a wreckage in my past that I couldn't go forward. And then I joined a fraternity. I became the master of my lodge and went on to other concordant bodies, and I'm a Shriner, so I help with the Shriners Children's Hospital. So, you know, I don't want to make it sound like I was living in a dumpster or, you know, taking heroin or anything. I was never at that, but I had a very high, very low tolerance for pain compared to some people.
Yeah, you had a high bottom.
Yeah, that's it.
High and tight.
That's my new character. His name is Sharpo Highbottom. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sharpo high bottom.
Hello.
Hello.
Highbottom.
Well, so maybe let's talk, you know, about you know, the fraternal order, because like you said, you know, you got into masonry,
Yeah.
and you know, those kind of organizations, they've kind of died down from what they were, you know, back in the day, right? Like my grandparents were Eagles or Elks. They were in the Elks, right?
Yeah.
And there's this whole sense of community and well-being and helping each other as well. So maybe, you know, kind of talk a little bit about that, and how did, you know, again, when you kind of hit your higher bottom, you know, was that one of those things that again kind of helped you come out of it and express yourself and become more who you are as well?
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. When I hit the high bottom, I had made some big mistakes in the world of Hollywood, and the opportunities had dried up. I had worked a bit in the 90s and TV and movies, and suddenly I found myself without many prospects in Hollywood. It kind of turned around since then. Don't know. I mean, just, you know, you run hot and cold in that business, but I think having forced to run my own business and the stress of the family. And once I went into, well, I joined the fraternity after being hired by the Scottish Rite in Pasadena to perform for them.
Oh, okay.
To do a show for their, you know, one of their fundraisers for my mystery show. And I said, well, these are really cool people. This is a lot of fun. They're having a blast. This is fellowship. This is really what I'm looking for. So I petitioned and I joined my Masonic Lodge, and I found a place of true friendship and true brotherhood and sisterhood too, because my lodge is very family friendly, and the wives and my children have run around that lodge room for the last 14 years, you know, as they grew up, or not that long. I've been a Mason 10 years almost. So for 10 years, they've been running wild in that lodge room and in the dining room. And there's just life is better with friends. Life is better with fellowship. Life is so much richer when you do, and these guys have showed me an example of how to be a man and how to be a better person. Mm-hmm. You know, the Grand Secretary of California Masons, the state of California, said, you know, what is the best definition of Freemasonry for the people who don't know what it is? And I love his definition better than any other. He says, it's a place where I go to make great friends, improve myself, and have an impact on my community. 3 things. And it's so true, and it is never failed me, and it has just been a cornerstone of my existence. So and yeah, it has died down. Back, you know, 60 years ago,
oh yeah,
they said half of the men in the United States were in a fraternity. Yeah. You had Howard Cunningham with his leopard fez, and
yes,
you had Ralph Cramden with his raccoon hair, woo, woo, woo. And everybody was, you know, I actually had created a fictional one for one of my murder mystery shows called Loopy, the Loyal Order of Protective Yaks.
Oh, nice.
The Loopy, yes. Join Loopy and you.
Well, we have to protect our yaks. I mean, let's be honest. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, but I have always been fascinated by the Masons. My family goes way back through the Knights of Malta and the Masons, and there's pictures of like my great-great-grandfather with his little Mason pin on, and, you know, I've got a bunch of medals that were my grandfather's, and I've always been, even as a kid, because it had this like mysterious sort of magical underground thing to it, which is what appealed to me. But it's like Jean Houston is one of my favorite, boy, I don't even know what to call her, philosophers, writers, spiritualists. And she was actually brought into Washington, D.C. ages ago to help deal with talking about gang issues and why boys, specifically at a certain age, glom onto other boys and take the wrong path. And one of the things that she realized in looking through history and looking through our society now is we don't have these coming of age things. We don't have these rituals outside of the Jewish faith where you have a bar mitzvah. And now it doesn't even really say, okay, now you're a man and give you responsibilities. You seem to have a big party, you get a bunch of money and you move on. But we don't have that ritual. We don't have that community. Now you're a man. These are your responsibilities. You're not taught how to do that. And it sounds like bringing back this sort of order where you have older men, or at least peers, to walk you through what it means to function in the society as a man or a woman, what it means to fit into that community and have that role. Is that what this does for you? I mean, I would say yes, but I'm not in it. So
100% yes, this is a situation of mentorship.
Yeah.
You've seen the picture of the hand up and a hand down. One hand is pulling you up and the next one pulling the next one up, so that we're looking out for each other and we're mentoring each other through life. And it's a combination of learning to be introspective and see things in a different way, and then to apply those values into life. So, you know, we talk about the working tools of a Mason, you know. So that's
Well, I think, you know, again, Kathy, like you said, I mean, because I've seen this. I can't remember where I was in Winnipeg, Canada, actually. And there was, I think it was a Shriners convention that was going on, but they were, you know, in talking to some of the guys, you know, that were there, one of their concerns was in how enrollment had gone down. And they were, you know, that was one of the parts of this conference, was trying to discuss, you know, how do we bring new people into this, because they've been kind of dying off a little bit. And I think, you know, as we're talking here again, I mean, a sense of community is so important for all of us as humans, right? Whether it's in a familial setting, a fraternal setting, you know, some sort of thing. We all long for community and for belonging. And especially now, you know, with us all moving all over the world, you know, separated from our families, you know, more so than we were 100 years ago. You know, now literally social isolation in some of the stuff that we're going through. And I think as humans, we need that, we want that, but we're not taking as much advantage of it as we probably could.
You know, the idea, though, of the dying out is not a worry for me, because like anything else, this waxes and wanes.
Yeah.
It comes in little waves. The tide goes in and the tide goes out, and it's better to have good people than lots of people. You know, and the other thing is, as some of the numbers may be low at the moment in traditional Freemasonry, there are leagues of women Freemasons that are growing, that are in co-Masons. So it's not the traditional, you know, Grand Lodge, you know, which has been a brotherhood, a fraternity, a male place for men. And now, you know, and one of the reasons the Elks became popular was because it's co-ed.
Yeah.
So, and they can drink in lodge. They have bars in the lodge. And Masons, we don't do that. You know, in California, anyway, we're square, square compass. We're squares. We don't. So we're held to a very strict moral code in Freemasonry. In some of the other clubs, you know, and so okay, you know. In fact, the Elks were started by a couple of Masons who wanted to drink in lodge, and they couldn't do it in a Masonic lodge. They said, well, what if we created a second organization? They were actually actors in New York City, and the liquor laws in New York City wouldn't let them drink on Sundays. They said, well, if we have a private club, we can get around that. So they started the Elks. The Rotary was started by a couple of Masons.
Yeah.
The Rotary Club, because in Masonry, you're not supposed to have mercenary motives of trying to better to try and get business contacts. We don't want that kind of thing going on where people feel like they're being exploited or used or manipulated. So so the Rotary was like, yeah, but why couldn't we have an organization specifically for business networking? So a couple of Masons helped with a couple of non-Masons form the Rotary. It was all based, though, all of these fraternities were all based on the original Masonic order, the way to hold a meeting, the way that you have the people behave like civilized gentlemen and gentle ladies rather than barbarism, and it really so the Masons is the oldest and the largest fraternity in the world, going back for 300 years of organized Freemasonry.
Wow. Well, like I said, I've always been obsessed with it, because when I found those medals and I started seeing these old photos, I was, and this was before the interweb, so I couldn't Google anything. So I had these medals with Latin written on it. I'm like, I don't know what this means. So I created this entire tale about this mysterious thing that, very cool.
This is my past master pin from my Masonic. Well, this was a gift from the brethren.
Oh, beautiful.
So it's and we like our pins and we like our rings and we like our accoutrement, but some people might get the idea that it's a shallow thing, but most people who have a pin or a ring, it's usually has a story behind it.
Yeah, sure.
It was a gift from someone who mattered, or it was an exchange of ideas, and you were at an event and you met someone and they gave you the lodge pin from their lodge, and it's just communication, the meeting of the hearts and the minds. So, and I say to anyone, whatever path you choose in life, whether it's a club or a organization, a church fellowship, whatever gets you connecting so that you're not going through life alone, and then it comes back to what you do with the empowerment group, Kathy, and how you're sharing and say what's going on in here, and you get it and you voice it out loud, and you just open, and you realize that there are very few barriers between souls. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. And what a beautiful place to end, because once again, we've blown through our half an hour.
I'm so sorry. Blah, 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 blah.
No, this is great. This is why, if we wanted you to sit silently, we wouldn't have had you on. A silent guest is boring. Any final thoughts, Jason? This was a fabulous conversation. I'm so glad we did this.
Well, no, I think it's great, and again, Eric, I mean, thanks for coming on and sharing, because, like you said, it's, we all go through this life. We all make mistakes. We're all human. But the more we can have this connection and community with other people, like you said, regardless of what it is, we all need something. If it's church, if it's a fraternal order, if it's a Facebook group, if it's a whatever it happens to be, we all need that human connection. We need to, like you said, somebody's pulling us up and we're pulling somebody else up. And we've got to realize how interconnected we all are if we're gonna, make this world a better place and help everyone. So, I for one really appreciate it. And even things, like the rings and the other stuff, hey, those go back to tokens, and they're reminders of things. We've talked about that with habits and everything else too. It's a great way of reminding ourselves of, who we really are and who we really need to be. And I'm just really grateful that you've found that, and you've moved and developed and grown in your life, and we're courageous enough to come on and actually share it with us too.
Well, you got to find it every day. Otherwise,
you
put a cloud between what you found and you lose it again. So
yeah. Ah, beautiful.
Thank you,
excellent.
Guys. Thanks for having me.
So of course, so where can people find you? Because I know you're doing magic now. You're still performing and entertaining. And what's the best site for you?
Sharpo.com. SHARPO, Sharpo.com.
Sharpo.com.
Cool. Well, I'm Kathy Gruver. I can be reached at kathygruver.com.
And I'm Jason Mefford. I can be reached at jasonmefford.com. So go out, find some community people. Yeah, I love that. There we go.
Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper. And we'll catch you on a future episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. See ya.
Thanks.